I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for our webinar on navigating tertiary education here in the United States. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, this is actually our third session in a series of informative webinars to help people who have interest in furthering their education here in the United States. So the first webinar focused on the general preparation for people who have interest to come here and what they need to do after they have decided that this is an option they want to pursue. And our second webinar focused on the application requirements. We delve deeper into that. And so I will share the two links for these two webinars in the chat box as we go ahead. For today's session, we'll be discussing navigating funding, which is very important. Is one of the reasons why people hesitate or people get discouraged about furthering their education here in the United States. We have a Facebook group that anyone can join. I'll share the link to that Facebook group too. The group allows us to engage on a more personal level with people that join us for these webinars. So before we begin, I want to just set down a few house rules. I would like to encourage people to use the chat box when they want to make any comments, and also try to mute your mic when you're not speaking, so that we can hear the panelists speak. If you like to speak to, just use the raise hand button, or you can text in the chat box and I will draw the attention of the panelists. So at this point, I would like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves. And today we have with us Valerie. Valerie, go ahead and introduce yourself. Valerie, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. My name is Valerie. I started off with community college at Iowa Central Community College, moved on to get my bachelor's at the University of Minnesota, then came to the University of Baltimore, where I did my master's in global affairs and human security. Thank you.
We also have with us Ifya Ejekun.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Ifya Ejekun, and I did my master's here at North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University, and currently work as a technical advisor with ADRA International, which is a humanitarian and development organization. So it's nice to meet all of you, and we look forward to an engaging session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ifya. We also have with us Isaac Amwa. Isaac, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Isaac, and I am currently working with the Children's National Medical. It's a hospital, and I work as a procure-to-pay analyst. I had my graduate education from the George Washington University in applied economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. We have with us Nana Sechiwa. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nana Sechiwa Brownwood. I got my undergraduate degree in animal biology and conservation science from the University of Ghana, and my master's degree in environmental conservation from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm currently working as a programs manager for an organization called Neatero. Thank you.
Thank you. We have with us Edna Mensah. Edna, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Edna Mensah. I had my undergraduate studies in University of Ghana. I studied economics for my bachelor's degree, and did my national service. After that, I moved here for my master's degree in applied economics at Illinois State University. I currently work as a research analyst with the IMF. Thank you.
Thank you, Edna. And finally, but not the least, we have Alfred with us. Alfred, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Alfred Agbekuji. I did my undergrad in biochemistry at the University of Ghana, and I'm currently studying microbiology at Virginia Tech.
Thank you. I know we have several others that have joined us that have experience when it comes to studying here in the United States that will be contributing to this discussion. One quick note, I just want everyone on this webinar to be aware that the opinions that are shared by myself, the panelists, and all the other contributors are that of their own and not of their employers. And we as a group, as Student USA, are not a consultancy agency that recruits international students here to the US. This is just a community service to help people that have interest of furthering their education here and just guide them because it is necessary. For today's session, this is the structure it will take. First, Edna is going to give a presentation on types of funding that people can tap into. And then after that, I will engage the panelists and then give the participants the option to ask questions. So without further ado, Edna, I hand it over to you, and yep.
Hello to everyone once again, and welcome to today's webinar discussing the common types of funding for graduate studies in the US. This topic has become very pertinent, it's very important in this time and season because I know most of you really want to take a step and go for your master's degree or even PhD or undergraduate studies in the US. But most of us shy away just because, excuse me to say, because of ignorance. Some of us, we don't really know what is out there for us as far as funding is concerned. All people hear is that, oh, the fees are really expensive and it's X amount of money. My parents can't afford it. I can't afford it. I don't know where to get funding from. So we decided to put together this webinar just to kind of like enlighten you and show you the common areas you could be looking at for funding as far as sponsoring your degree. Without further ado, I am going to be sharing my PowerPoint slides. So those on Zoom, you'll be able to see what I'm sharing. If you're on Instagram with me, just stay on. Unfortunately, you can't see it, but at least you can listen in. So I'm sharing my screen now. So, good. Can you already see that I've shared my screen? Sorry, this is the first time I'm doing this, so just making
sure. No, we can't see it, but I'm here as backup in case I need to share my screen. I can.
Oh, you can't see it?
No, we can't see it.
Oh, okay. You
want me to share my screen?
Do you see it now?
Oh yeah, we see it now.
Okay, I think I had to hit the last. Okay. So you can see it now, right?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Yeah, so when it comes to the common types of funding, we have a few of them here that we would like to share with you. First and foremost, we have what we call graduate assistantship, and that's the most common types of funding that graduate students use for their graduate studies. Most of these funding are available at the departmental level, and then they may come in the form of like research, teaching, or administrative service in exchange for a monthly stipend. You also get the opportunity for your tuition to be waived, right? And some schools, in addition, also pay you for health insurance. They pay your health insurance for you if you ever get a graduate assistantship. The graduate assistantship is typically part-time or full-time. For part-time, it's normally around 7.5 hours to 10 hours. And for full-time, it's ranging between 15 hours to 20 hours. And I know some of you will be curious about how much you'll be paid for this. Now, it varies state by state, depending on the living standard in the particular state. So while it's normally capped above, a little above the minimum wage, it might range between, for example, let me share my instance with you. I was paid around $9 for an hour as a graduate assistant. But in other places, it could be more. I had a colleague who said he was being paid like 20 hours or so, right? And for this, it's not just the department. You can also look within other, not the department that you are studying at, but you could also look within other departments or even other offices in the on campus also to find a graduate assistantship role. Now, some schools consider you automatically for a GA position when you send in your school application, but other schools expect you to apply separately for a GA. So you need to check your program's website to be sure the way forward on this, whether you are automatically considered or you have to do a separate application so that you don't miss out on this. Now, I know most of you will be wondering, so how do I secure a graduate assistantship? That's a very good question, but there is no magic way or trick to go about it. The only thing we can tell you pretty much is that you have to submit your application early. So when application opens up in September, October, you want to be part of the people who submit the application on time, right? And also you have to have a good GPA. We can't say that enough, but even if your GPA is not so strong, what you want to do is that you want to make sure that you have a very good score on your GRE or your GMAT score. For all those who do not know what a GRE or GMAT is, it's a standardized exam, which is required as part of your graduate school application here in the US. But lately, because of COVID, some schools are waiving this GRE requirement. So you might want to check with your school and see if this is something that is being waived or is still being required. Lastly, you want to make sure that you have a very great statement of purpose, right? If you don't know how to write a statement of purpose, Google has the answers to everything, or simply go on YouTube. There will be people who will be sharing their expertise on how to write a very good statement of purpose. And that being said, of all of these, after you've done everything that we've said here, one thing that you also want to do is that you want to have a constant communication with your program's advisor. We can't stress that enough, right? After you've applied and done everything, make sure that you are in communication with him, expressing your interest about getting funding from the school. I guess when we move to individual experiences, you will hear how some of us actually benefited from contacting our program's advisor and not just applying and hoping that we will automatically get funding. The second form of funding that I would like to talk about is fellowships. This also is some sort of scholarship that you may get, but in this case, you don't have to offer any form of service, right? So this can be offered in exchange for, like, they may give you a stipend or even a partial or a full tuition waiver. Tuition is pretty much, it's some sort of fee that you pay for graduate programs in the US, not just graduate program, any form of study in the US, you have to pay tuition, which is like the bulk of the money, and you also have to pay general fees. But when it comes to tuition, if you have a fellowship, the fellowship might be offering you a tuition waiver, either partial or a full tuition waiver, but you don't have to offer any form of service at all for this. Now you may be wondering, where can I get fellowships for school? What you want to do is check your school's website, check with financial aid offices of your school. Also, there are different external databases that you could be finding information on fellowships, right? So you want to explore both internal options and external options. And like we've already shared, also, if you want to secure a fellowship, you need to make sure that you are doing the utmost, you are doing the best you can, because these fellowships can be very competitive, especially the external ones. So you have to make sure that if you are applying for an external fellowship, you have all it takes, you have all the credential to be able to apply for this. At the same time, if you are even looking within your school internally, just make sure that you are speaking with your financial office. You can even also be speaking with the international office, because sometimes they also have ideas of how to find fellowships. Now, the third one I would like to speak about is the tuition waivers. Now, tuition waivers, I know you already heard it before when I was discussing the graduate assistantship. But sometimes your school also offers tuition waivers, not because you have a graduate assistantship position, but they will just pretty much offer you a tuition waiver as a result of other means. That's also a standalone funding source on its own. But to be able to get a tuition waiver, usually you have to be in the school. It's mostly accessible to people who are already in the school and maybe have already done their first semester, right? So in this case, they will base it on your scores, your grades, your first semester, how well did you perform? That will dictate to you whether you will get a tuition waiver or not. If you were in a school and you did poorly your first semester, I don't think it will be a good grounds for them to grant you tuition waiver, but that could happen. So what you want to do is also to speak with your programs advisor, like we've said, speak with your financial aid office. Most of the time, they are aware of all these funding. If you speak to them and you have a legitimate reason why they should give you a tuition waiver, especially when you know you've performed academically really well in your first semester, they may be willing to give you a tuition waiver if this is available. Now, tuition waivers help a lot because it's pretty much, tuition is the bulk of the money that you have to pay for school. So if that is waived for you, it helps a lot. All you have to now pay is your general fees, which is very small, and then how much you spend on rent and also food for yourself and some miscellaneous spending. These are the three main types, but I'll just give you a bonus, two more sources that you can consider. You can also consider on-campus employment. And this is also very good because when you get an on-campus, if you are not able to get graduate assistantship, which is very limited and very competitive, or you are not able to get fellowships, or you are not able to get a tuition waiver, what you want to do is that you work on campus, right? In exchange for some hourly wage. And for campus, pretty much getting a job is quite relatively easier compared to these other three that we've spoken about. So you may want to be looking in your libraries. They may have jobs there which pay very well. You may look in your dining centers. Pretty much so far as it's on campus, that is fine. And just so you know, international students can't work off campus during a semester, right? You can only work on campus. It is illegal for you to work off campus. So what you want to do is that in the course of the semester, if you think you are hard on money and you want to get extra money, definitely look on campus and find a job there to do. And like I've already mentioned to you, a couple of them that you can already start looking into. Now, this can be part-time. I already explained the hours. So if you want to do part-time, you can do something around 7.5 hours to 10 hours or so. If you want to do full-time, you can do 15 to 20 hours in the course of the semester. That's completely fine, but that's the maximum. The maximum you'll be able to work as far as in the course of the semester is pretty much 20 hours. Yeah. The last of it all is student loans. For student loans, we will honestly not advise anyone to go with this route unless it's very, very vital that you take a student loan. Because what happens is that when you take a student loan, you have to bear in mind that right after school, when you start working, you will be deducted. And especially also being an international student, if you finish school and you don't get a job right away in the US and you still have to pay the student loan, it becomes a burden to you. Also, to access a student loan, you have to have a guarantor who is a US citizen here, right? And not everyone will be willing to guarantee for you, especially if they know the risk involved. Because if you don't pay as an international student, they will go after your guarantor for the student loan. So this is kind of like the last resort after you've explored all other funding means and you know that you are not getting anything at all. This is where you go to. But we would normally advise this for people maybe doing STEM programs who are rest assured that they may definitely find a job. I know a lot of people who are doing MFE, Master of Financial Engineering program, who take the student loans because they know that for sure when they finish school, they will be able to get access to the funding. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. We are live on Instagram group. Sorry, we have an Instagram group page. We also have a YouTube, so feel free to join. We'll be sharing a lot of information there. We've already shared a lot of funding on there, so you can already access it. Thank you. I'll give it back to the moderator, Nat.
Thank you, Edna, for the presentation. I just have a quick question with your last point. Can the loans be, can someone get a loan while they're in Ghana, or they need to be here, just like tuition waiver and other stuff? Can someone get a loan whilst they're in Ghana to come here?
To the best of my knowledge, I think you have to be here before applying to the loan, but I haven't really done a lot of research, so I can't say for sure. But I think once you get here, you can pretty much explore the loan aspect. And for the purposes of the embassy, I don't think they may be in a position to grant you a visa easily if you are going to the embassy to present to them a loan for school. Like, it should show in a way that you are able to fund yourself. That makes them rest assured that you will for sure even go and come back. But if you are not in a comfortable position and you are applying at the embassy with a loan, they may think that even if you finish, you have kind of like the idea of staying to be able to pay off your loan. So they may, it's not even advisable. Take it even before you come, unless you have some statement to show them, then you can do the loan separately.
Yeah, it might show that you have the intent to stay after your school.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to engage the other panelists in terms of their personal experiences and what type of funding that they tapped into. And I know that Valerie, you have a special experience in terms of you coming here for high school and then starting undergrad. And so for this particular topic, what would be your advice for people that are coming here for undergraduate studies and the sources of funding that they might be able to tap into?
Thank you, Kofi. Thank you, Nat, actually. So, whereas for graduate school, you have the options like Edna had listed, graduate assistantship. With the undergrad, you don't necessarily have that option. There's fellowships you could look into, both internally and externally, but then you don't have the option of fee waivers and all that. But what I did when I was applying and what has helped me and what I would advise anyone is there are schools in the United States that allow international students to apply and pay in-state tuition.
Okay.
So what that is basically, like the school I went to, University of Minnesota, in-state tuition was, out-of-state tuition was about $16,000 a year. And as an international student, you typically pay that and even more for international student fees.
Right.
They have the option where as an international student, you could come in, pay in-state tuition that would cut that $16,000 to half the cost. But you had to maintain a certain grade point at GPA. Once you drop below a 2.5, well, I think it's manageable. Once you drop below that grade point, you lose the in-state tuition and you end up have to paying the whole thing. So I found that school, went down there, had the option of paying in-state. I looked around to there are other scholarships that the school offer. You can go on the year calendar, you find due dates for certain scholarships you could apply to and get depending on their diversity scholarships you can look into, which I did. And so the difference of maybe, I'm using my example. So eventually finding the in-state, having some of these scholarships, it knocks up a lot. So you could end up paying like $5,000 between two semesters, the fall and spring semester. So that's what I would advise. You look around. Some schools have that option, not a whole lot of them, but then it's definitely available for you to explore. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And I know you have the experience of also community college. Can you talk a little bit about community college and what funding sources can be tapped into at community college level, and what's the difference between community college and a full 4-year college?
So in our previous webinars, we kind of spoke about this. Community college is 2 years, which you eventually have to transition to a 4-year college to get your bachelor's degree. So now with a community college, it's a cheaper route. So basically, you pay $2,000 a semester. So I think in Ghana, the equivalent would be like the technical schools.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cheap. You get out your general education out of the way. Then you can move into the 4-year where you concentrate on what exactly your major is and get your core subjects out of the way. So with a community college, what people ended up doing, or what I did, was found one that was cheap. So a semester I paid the tuition came up to as low as 1,900 for about 12 credits hours. And between working on school, like Edna had mentioned in some of the way, there was the option where you could work and they would subtract some fee from your income at the end of 2 weeks, because you're paid every fortnight. So they'll subtract some income towards your tuition, and within a semester you could pay that off. Coupled with some scholarships you get, there's a lot of diversity scholarships all over campus. You could just make sure you're friends or make links with people in the international office, and when there's something, they will immediately let you know, oh, there's this available for grabs, and you can immediately jump on that.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And Alfred, I know that you have a different experience. In fact, for you, you're doing like what we call a full ride. And so I would like to engage you to talk to us about how you also came across your sources of funding and how is that working out for you?
Thanks, Kofi, for your question. So in my case, I had prior knowledge that in the STEM field, once you get admitted into the school for a PhD, you're automatically given the funding as well. So in my search for schools, I always made sure that it was stated, or I inquired from the graduate coordinator to make sure that the school provided funding for the course of the 5-year program or the PhD program.
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, once I applied to the schools and I was admitted, the funding came with it.
Okay, was that part of your search? So when you were searching, were you looking for schools that will
Exactly.
Okay. So what would be your advice to people that are on this webinar in terms of their search for school? What are some of the key words or terms they need to put in to be able to find something like you have right now?
Yeah, so I talked more about this in our previous webinar, so I'll encourage people to refer to that video.
Right.
But what you should look for is the department or the graduate school explicitly saying that you're going to be given funding for the program. Once you're admitted, funding is assured. Look for phrases like that, and those fundings are usually graduate assistantships. So those should be able to help you with that.
Okay, thank you. Isaac, do you want to add anything to what the other panelists have said in terms of funding? What was your source of funding and how did that work out throughout your education?
Oh, okay. So mine was a graduate assistantship, and then it was stated clearly. That's why you really have to do your research on the school sites. That if you're a Ghanaian or you are from Nigeria, they had a list of schools. If you get admission, you're going to get this amount. So everything was stated. So I applied, and because I got admission, I didn't have to do any different application for funding. And then one thing I would like to say is that try and get library jobs. They pay well. During the summer, you still work because the library works 24/7, like throughout the year. And then also with the on-campus job, as Edna said, whilst you're in Ghana, you can also try. If you get admission, you go to the school site, you go to careers. It's mostly down there. You go to the school site, really like the down where they have the information about us and all those things. and then you can see careers, and then you can really look at some jobs that are opening and you can apply. Because most of the things are virtual now, you can have your interview whilst you're in Ghana. So you can also try that. And then the last thing I will also say is you can keep in touch with your programs coordinators. Mostly they are different from the graduate advisors. The program coordinator, like those who actually they are heading the program, so you can contact them in terms of your financial needs, and you have to be a little bit aggressive when they say no. You should still come back and show them that you really want to do this, but you don't have enough funding, and they are helpful. They can pull some strings and help you out.
All right. Thank you so much, Isaac. And finally, Sichiwa, if you can also touch on your experience and more so like what could be done in Ghana. Are there sources of funding in Ghana too that people can tap into? And also if any of the panelists have experiences in tapping into funding in Ghana, they can also add onto that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your question. For me, I got a fellowship.
Okay.
And my fellowship came alongside with my application. So whilst I was applying to the school, I knew that as you apply, so almost like Alfred, I knew that as you apply, there will be some scholarship coming with it. But I was also very much aware that it wasn't a full scholarship. Just like Alfred stated, you can inquire, is it coming with a scholarship and what amount? So for me, I was told that it's going to come with a partial scholarship, but not going to be a full amount. And I took the risk in that regard. I got 50% scholarship from the school, which was a fellowship, and I had to look for the remaining on my own. I got the opportunity to do that so I started my search off in Ghana looking for scholarships and other external agencies in the UK, in Europe. So I was trying to apply to scholarship with OFID, with the African American Women Society, University Society. There's also some another group that provide funding for international women. So I was looking out for those ones, and they're all competitive, hard to get. But I was fortunate enough to get my 50% from a private body. So some companies also in Ghana and some institutes also do social good and offer scholarships to people, probably because their field are aligned with what they are probably investing in that year for. So they may pick 1 or 2 students or 2-3 students, or I don't know, whatever number they are looking to provide scholarship for that year. So that was where I got my remaining 50%. Like I said, I started off by going to the scholarship secretariat in Ghana. Unfortunately, those scholarships there were tailored towards certain programs and also certain countries. Unfortunately for Ghana, there's really, really few places that you could find are offering scholarship for people going to school in the US and for a master's program. Most of the ones that I was finding, maybe now things have changed, but were more for medical school. People who are pursuing medical were going to do medicine in places like Russia, Ukraine, or Cuba, and some other ones too that were around. So that's how I got my remaining 50 to support for my tuition and fees. So for things like accommodation, but one thing I must add is if I knew about the graduate assistantship more, I may not have taken the fellowship because the graduate assistantship offers tuition waivers, so that though it will be paying you to work because you are working, it will also waive your tuition for you. So eventually, whatever money you were even getting paid for, you could also use it to supplement other bills, and it would have been neutralized. But the fellowship, meaning that we are giving you the money and we just want you to study, don't do any other work. So I couldn't do graduate assistantship in addition to my fellowship. That's how come I really needed to get the remaining 50% fellowship. So if I knew that, maybe that's what I would do differently now. And just to add off, so how I funded my other means to live, like accommodation, and that was once you're in the school. Edna did mention about the option to be able to work.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, you couldn't work right away. The school had a policy of you had to be on campus for at least one semester. So I couldn't work the very semester I arrived. I had to fully be in school and in class for one semester and then apply for on-campus job to do in the second semester.
Mm-hmm.
And what I applied for was dining. So I was serving in the kitchen in the school dining. And that was giving me like $9 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And like she also did mention, the maximum an international students can do is up to 20 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I was managing myself to be able to do at most the 20 hours so that I could get as much as I could get from that and use to supplement for my bills in terms of like room and then phone bills and food to eat. So that's how I covered it.
Thank you so much. Finally, I fear not to repeat what other panelists have said. For your experience, what would be your advice to people that that want to come here for higher education, and when it comes to funding, what they need to look out for?
Thanks, Matt. The few additions I would add is that, as Isaac said, be aggressive in your search. We are not saying that if you follow these processes, then it's a get-go and you're going to get it. You might get declined. You might have some challenges with getting people to understand your situation and relate with you and understand how important it is for you to get the funding. But don't get discouraged. Keep pushing. Keep explaining why you need it, how vital it is for you to actually do the studies that you're trying to pursue. And eventually something will work out. We've tried it many times. So I would say don't give up, keep pursuing. And whenever you're given funding, please do read the fine print. Read the details of how much funding you are getting, for what duration, so that you know if you need to explore other options during certain times of your study or during certain semesters. For example, is your funding for a full year or is it for 9 months? So that is during the summer period, May to August. Are you going to be paid or not? If not, then you can explore some options. So when it's summer and we are not in school, you can actually work 40 hours on campus. So you can explore other options that can allow you to take advantage of that full 40 hours. And if your funding is for the first year of school or your entire duration of schooling, whether 2 years or 4 years, you know all of these details. It helps you to plan well and make sure you have consistent funding throughout your entire school study period. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Afia. At this time, I will turn on to the participants to start asking questions. And already I see that Senna has raised her hand. So Senna, go ahead and ask your question. She said, well, I think she typed it in the chat box. Is the number of hours you're allowed to work on daily basis, say 20 hours a day or the entire semester? She wants to know if that is the entire semester or
it's 20 hours a week.
Okay.
So I think I stand to be corrected, but for an American citizen, you can, a full-time working is around 35 or so.
40 hours a week.
40 hours a week, yeah, okay. But for an international student, you can't do that. So you would be doing 20 hours a week, but your colleagues who are Americans will be working 40 hours a week alongside with you in school. But for international students, we are only limited to 20 hours a week of working.
Okay. Dominic also has his hand up. Dominic, go ahead with your question.
All right, thank you so much. So can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
wonderful. So my question has to do with supposing you have found a school and you're fortunate enough to get, let's say, a fellowship, or let's say maybe you've applied for a job and you have been granted this job. How does that change the conversation when you go for a visa? How does that change the conversation? Or like, is there maybe some leverage you have given the fact that you have, let's say, a graduate assistantship, or let's say you have maybe a 50% scholarship when you're going for your visa interview? Or that happens before? Maybe I'm confused, so maybe you can help me there. Yeah.
Can I try to answer the question?
Sure. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so when you get a funding and you be going for a visa, before you even go for the visa, the school will give you a document called the I-20. And in the I-20, there is a section where on financials. And the school is going to state there how much it costs for you to go to school. So I'm looking at my I-20, for instance. It gives you tuition and fees, how much that costs, living expenses, how much that will cost you, expenses of dependents. If you are coming in with maybe your family, your child, and then others, it will give you all that. And it will divide the funds into personal funds, how much you yourself are bringing to your school. It will let you, it will indicate there so that the embassy can see that. And then how much you are getting from scholarship, whether it's from the school, they will also indicate that. So whatever job you, so I'm using that to let you know, if you have a job and the school is aware that, okay, she'll be working as a graduate assistant, or will be working as, it will be indicated there, and all that will be balanced. So they are going to balance how much you to be in school in America will cost and how much you have, or how much they are estimating that you'll be having with you will cost. So I hope that helps answer your question. But if this job you're talking about, it's not going to be stated in your I-20, then the embassy will not be aware, because they are looking at what is on your I-20 to grant you that visa.
Okay. Because I always heard that it helps to, present, a very, very fat, statement, right? Let's say a statement that represents the fact that you have been in control of, let's say, $100,000, right? Therefore, you can afford your education, right? But, the piece of information you just gave me regarding the I-20, has just clarified that the amount the school is supporting you is on the documents, and the amount that you can also provide, right? Let's say maybe you can provide $10,000. You should truthfully put it there that I can provide $10,000, right? Okay.
Dominic, to what she said, the most important thing is that from what she said balance, right?
That's right.
If your whole education is costing $30,000 and the school give you $20,000, then you have to make sure that from your personal funds you are able to show the difference
to cover that. Yeah,
$10,000, and that gives some sort of assurance to the embassy that you are in a comfortable position to fund your schooling. But if that's not the case, if the school is giving you $10,000 and you have personal funds of $10,000, there is still a gap, and you have
there's a difference of a $10,000.
and you have to find that before you get to the embassy.
Okay.
Or before you go to the embassy, right?
Yeah, and then for me, I would say it's very important for it to reflect on your I-20. And for it to reflect on your I-20, you must make that information to the school, available to the school. And then the school would include it in your I-20.
Yeah, and the school has something called certificate of, I forgot the name, but it's something that you fill. So if they're not giving you full funding, right, there is a certificate of financial declaration or something where you will fill, tell them how much money you can provide, and also attach your bank statement. If it's coming from Ghana, you attach your bank statement in Ghana City, but you write the exchange rate. So they compare and know how much money you will have, and they will add that to your I-20. So the document will already be prepared for you based on how much money you are also showing them, proving to them that you can provide on your own outside of the funding they have to give you.
just a quick follow-up. Will that require you to make a deposit into an American bank account?
No, you can show your bank
Okay.
accounts from
All
Ghana.
right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I think maybe the little I can add on that is I think for most schools, you don't have to make a deposit into an American account for them to see your money. But I probably in Europe, I know in Europe, people do make that deposits. You have to
Okay.
make some partial deposit. But in American school, I haven't yet encountered some, but maybe there would be some that.
So you can literally show up at the airport broke with
So
your literally like no money in your physical pockets, but let's say money in Ghana that can be transferred to you. I'm just asking.
no,
So
so
let me.
when you get admission, right? Some
Uh-huh.
schools, I don't know if I'm understanding your question correctly, but a few schools ask you to make a commitment at the initial stage where they
Okay.
ask you to pay a certain deposit. Now, not every school do that, but some
Okay.
schools do that for you to secure your spot because some people will
Okay.
say, I'll come. So they deny other students, last minute student don't show
That's
up.
right. Yeah.
So some schools might require you to do a deposit, which it will be used towards your final tuition if you
Okay.
decide to join the school. But as
Okay.
far as not having money and traveling to the airports, I don't think it's even a good idea to start with. I know if
Okay.
will be adding more to it, but the point is you might encounter so many different things that will require you to have some sort of money. For example, you
That's
get to
right.
the airport, you need to make a quick call to someone, but you don't even have money to place a call. Like
That's right. That's
it's
right.
very inconvenient. So there is no way you can not have money. For me personally, when I was traveling, at least my expenses for the for maybe a couple of months, like 2-3 months. I'm saying this because I had some funding in Ghana, but also had some funding with the school. At least
That's
for
good.
3 months, I had my money cash in dollars
On you.
on me.
Wonderful.
And then I went, and then once I was in school, after 3 months, they transferred the rest because I was then able to open a bank account in the US. So then
Okay.
they subsequently transferred the money. But you can show up at the airport's book. You should
Okay.
have, if you have money and you are taking with you, you should have them on hand. To
Yeah.
travel with. Yeah.
So,
And if you go ahead and
okay, sorry. I'll add on to what Edna said. It's not really a good advisable to carry that bulk of money on you. And anything can happen. You know
No,
that.
not like 10,000, but like 3K or something less. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think most of what I was going to say has been said, but I will add that at the embassy, really what they are looking out for is that you are saying you are applying to come and study here.
Mhm.
And to study, you need to pay fees for it. They want you to show proof that you actually have the money to pay for that fees. So if it means that you have scholarship, then for the embassy, it makes it easier for them. It makes it easier for them. If you don't have scholarship or you have some amount of scholarship and you are supplementing the difference, then they want to make sure that you actually do have the money to pay as you're saying it. So that's where they now start to require the bank statements to ascertain that you do have that money that you are saying you are going to pay. So really the whole thing about the embassy and showing proof of funding is just so they know that you have the means to pay. And definitely when you are traveling, you do need some money to come with. Not bulk, because you can do electronic transfer, but enough
That's
to
right.
get yourself around
Enough to
in a very
maybe
few
pick a
days.
taxi or maybe make a phone call. All right.
yeah. And just to plug it in, I think our next session will be discussing after you have, been admitted in the visa processes. And so most of these things about what happens at the embassy will be discussed then.
Okay.
At this point too, I know there are some people who are participating that have experience when it comes to this. If they would like to add anything to what the panelists have said, this is the time to, add on to it. And also, if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand or go ahead and ask the question. And if no one does, I would like to ask the panelists this quick question about what was one of the most difficult challenges you faced when it came to funding, that you remember that, oh man, when this situation happened, it was tough and I just needed to figure it out. And how did you figure it out? I know Isaac has a story about how, his funding got locked up, or the school had to give him refund, but he was not receiving that refund. So if any of the panelists wants to touch on challenges with funding and how they overcame those challenges whilst they were in Ghana, when they got here, and whilst they were in school.
Okay, let me share the story before I forget. So what happened is that I think one thing you have to know is you have to actually know the cost of your study, and knowing it is knowing it by the course, the credit, because here they charge based on what credit hours. So one credit is like $200. So you have to know that. So after I did my calculation, I realized that I'm actually having extra funding at the end of the day. As in, if I calculate everything, because they were giving me 10,000 every semester.
Okay.
For the whole every semester.
And how much was the total for your school, like for your program?
So the program, so the program was around 60,000, and because it was 10 for every, and it was 4 semesters, so I was having like 40,000. So I was supposed to take care of 20,000.
Okay.
Yes. So the 60,000 is like your living expenses, everything. But the course alone, I think I have forgotten. I had extra at the end of the semester. So my last semester, I was supposed to take just one course, and they are giving me 10,000. And if I'm taking just one course, and that will be around 5,000. So I was having extra 5,000 at the end of the last semester. So, and I needed money before the last semester. So I went to the graduate department, like the financial department. I told them, okay, this is the case. At the end of my last semester, you are giving me 10,000. The cost is 5,000. Can I have the 5,000 now and used to pay what I'm owing? They said, no, we cannot do that. To be frank, there were sometimes I don't even schedule meeting. I just go there. I'm looking for. I knew her name. Like, we became friends. Like, I go there, and one thing I would advise is when you come here, try as much as possible. I think someone spoke, Valerie spoke about GPA. Try as much to get like the best, because I went there with my results and he was like, oh, you are a good student. We can't actually look or watch or see you go through this. We can't do this. I wrote letters. They saw the email. They are like, oh, we are sorry, we can't. I went there in person. That's why I'm always saying, try to be aggressive. I don't book appointment. I go there. Oh, I'm looking for. Then they'll be like, oh, do you have appointment? I'm like, oh yeah, I spoke to her. She said I should come through. I go there. So I went there over and over, and they did it for me. They actually gave me that money, because they are not going to give you the money like the physical. It will be in your account that, okay, this is what we are going to do. Everything is like a transaction you don't see. When you register, they'll credit you the 10,000, but they won't give it to you like there's a 10,000, because if they give you the 10,000, probably you might not school again and then go back to Ghana. So don't give it to you. So that was my story. So you have to know your program, how much you're paying every semester, every credit hour, and do the calculation. To be honest, I nearly decided not to come, because I thought the school fees was like too much, until someone actually broke everything down and realized that, okay, your living expenses is like estimated like 10,000, and it depends on you. You are going to live there. That's an estimate they've made for you. So you really have to know the cost of the program and then do your calculations, and that's really helpful.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Does anyone want to add anything to that in terms of challenges you faced? I know, Ifia, you said something about reading the fine print.
Yes, so reading the fine print is critical. For me, I got graduate assistantship, and I didn't realize that. So the graduate assistantship automatically gave me a tuition waiver. That means for the entire school fees, including tuition and other fees, the tuition was taken off by the graduate school because I got the graduate assistantship position. but then I didn't. Sorry. So I looked at the application and I assumed that I got the tuition waiver and it's for my 2 years of studies. Not knowing in my country, the policy is that when you are a graduate, when you get employed as a graduate research assistant, you can only get tuition waiver for 1 full academic year. You can get it more than that. So the second year I was waiting for my account, like Isaac said, it would show in your account. I was waiting for the tuition waiver to come in so that I used my salary from my graduate assistantship job to pay the difference. That's the remaining fees, which was about $4,000. But the tuition alone was $12,000. And I was waiting and it was not coming. Actually, it never came because I couldn't get more than a year. And it's because I had not read the fine details. If I did, I was here a whole year. This was my second year. I could have worked on something. Regardless, like Isaac said, push. I had to push. I had to talk to the provost. I went to the provost office many, many times. And of course, I always went prepared. I went with my CV, I went with my transcripts. And eventually, when I got to meet him and he looked at my academic records, he said, "Oh, well, you're such a good student. We wouldn't want to lose you. We'll see what we will do." And finally, I managed to work out something to help me to pay the tuition. So reading the fine print is important. And I would say in conclusion that securing funding is not an easy process. Please do start early. Start engaging your graduate coordinator as early as possible. Start engaging the graduate school to understand their different funding sources and mechanisms as early as possible to know which ones to pursue. And like Isaac said, and Alfred, if you desperately need to be funded, probably explore the route of looking for programs for which once admitted, you are secured of funding.
Right, and that one is just with a Google search, right?
I'll let Alfred answer that because he did that.
Yes, more like the Google search. And just to add to what Ifya was talking about, I think usually the scholarships are all yearly based. So even though the school promises that we are going to fund you throughout your education or throughout maybe the PhD, it's still a yearly thing. So in my case, for example, every year I have to sign a new contract, which is also dependent on my academic performance. Making sure that you don't get lower than a 3.0, and you are meeting any other requirements, maybe like maybe publishing or going to your lab, doing your research, your committee meetings, and all of those things. So you have to make sure you're meeting all those standards. And then the next year, you're going to have a new contract to sign. So at some point, like my first year, it was a graduate research assistantship. The second year was also a graduate research assistantship. And in the third year, the funding for the graduate research assistantship ran out. So now I have to teach the third year in order to get the stipend and then the teaching waiver, the tuition waiver. So just to let it be clear that the contracts or the funding are usually yearly based.
Thank you very much, Alfred. And for those of you that joined a bit late, I am sharing the first 2 webinars that we did to give you context to what we are doing right now. Also, when this webinar is done, as it's being recorded, we will share the link to that one too. Does anyone want to say something? Minister 1, do you want to say something? I see you keep unmuted.
Yes, my real name is William Apia.
Hi.
I came to school here. Hello. I came to school here as well after working for Barclays for maybe a couple of years, and then came here. From there, joined Deloitte, and currently with PwC. So whatever you guys are discussing are true. And maybe I might have a more insight information because of the fact that I used to work at the financial aid office where things are, dispersed and kind of decided on. The first guy spoke about challenges he had in getting a refund. Normally, those refunds are automatic. Once your scholarship or the funds that you have is more than the tuition, automatically, once you go past the period where you cannot drop or audit a class, you get the refund automatically. It hits your account, no two ways about that. But in his case, he wanted the money to be upfronted from started. So let's say he's in the first semester, unless like I'm getting it wrong, but he's in the first semester, but he wants funding from second semester. Normally they wouldn't give you the money like that. Again, two, you said you had only one course left. Normally you have to be a full-time student. So if you have a one course, which basically would be like a 3 credit, maximum 4 credit, it means that you don't even qualify to be a full-time student to get the funding from the second semester. So one, you need to be a full-time student for them to give you the funding. If you are international student, if you are an American citizen or permanent resident, then you only need 6 credits to get whatever refund that you are due. So in your case, you were having that challenge because the semester hasn't started. That's why they didn't want to give you the money. How about if, as you said, if you don't show up the next semester for the academic? Yeah, and then the other lady that spoke up later on also said about the tuition being the graduate assistant being 1 year. Normally, for most states that I know, is 2 years. But because the master's program is 2 years, they normally want to see how your performance is before they give you the graduate assistantship. So graduate assistantship, you work on campus. You either work under a faculty or you are employed to teach students and things like that. So normally they will base it off either your first or second semester grade to get to the financial. So normally by the time they give it to you, you're only left with 1 year. If your program is not 3 years, it's one for master students. So it's possible that in her case, maybe she was given from the very first time she came in, which is the first year that she came in, and therefore they assumed that she had gotten it when she was in second year. That's why they didn't make provisions for the subsequent year. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. So yes, you have to sign that contract every year, the graduate assistantship contract. You sign it every year, as the third person said. But depending on when they give it to you, if you don't make them aware that my program is 2 years, you are giving it to me the very first semester that I came in, and therefore I'll need it another year. Definitely by the time you are done with the first year, you won't have any funding. So that is one thing that I wanted to make it clear. Like, yes, take a look at the contract. Make sure if it is given to you at the very first semester that you came in, you have to make sure that it's going to cover the whole 2 years. If not, you'll be stranded at some point. And once you don't have the funding, automatically you fall out of status. Your name will be sent to immigration, and you will kind of screwed up. Anything financial aid, I can really speak to that because I worked in that office for 3 years. So if someone has any specific question, just let them ask here, and then I'll be able to help you guys answer them.
Thank you so much for your insight. That's very helpful. And one question that I will throw to you is, with your experience within the financial aid office, as you worked there for 3 years, what advice will you give someone that is in Ghana right now that wants to pursue education here and might have challenges with finances? What are some of the things they can tap into at the financial aid offices before they even come here?
Okay, so let me put it, some institutions, like in America, if I'm not misleading you guys, the institutions are kind of categorized into 3. We have federal institutions, which University of Maryland, University of Connecticut, University of, and then there are state institutions, which would be like, let's say, Bowie State Institution, University, and then they have private institutions, right? So mostly the state ones will make sure you are a citizen and at least a permanent resident. So for the federal and the state, they will make sure you are a citizen or a permanent resident before they give you, I'm using the word scholarship, not graduate assistant. Graduate assistantship doesn't come in. It's not part of the category that I'm talking about. So if you are not, first of all, if you are not a citizen or a permanent resident, some scholarship you cannot apply. they would make sure like you have to be like a citizen or a green card holder. Other than that, there are some scholarships that you find at the website that will specifically say like this is for minority. Minority will be blacks and definitely will qualify. So if in that scholarship, if they don't specifically state that this is specifically for permanent resident or American citizen, these are the kind of scholarships that you can apply because you are a minority. So like, for example, if you are going to a white institution like University of Maryland, and excuse my language, like most of the students, over the 35,000 students over there, I can tell you that 10% it's even hard for you to find 10% students that are blacks because they're like majority of them are white. So minority scholarships like that, you stand a chance of like getting that scholarship. Like your chances of getting is like 99%. Having said that, the private institutions, they don't care. Like University of Johns Hopkins University or University of New York, they don't care about that. As long as you have applied, you have been admitted, like George Washington, those universities, they are private universities. So they see everyone as equal. The scholarships are open to everyone. It's all about your GPA and how you are able to put up your write-up. So your GPA should speak for you, and then your write-up. And again, sometimes to the program of study, because some programs, they've like, if you are going into business, where I actually did, sometimes they feel like they will not benefit them. The country is not going to benefit that much. So it's difficult for you to find scholarships in like business areas, unless the institution itself wants to give you scholarships. Then you won't find things like that. But if you go into like, let's say health science or natural science, those courses, definitely you would have some kind of funding. So the program is very important. The institution you are picking is also very important. And again, you have to also look at the scholarship itself to make sure that you meet the requirement. Like if the ones that they will specifically say minority, you have like a 99% chance of getting that scholarship done. Scholarship that is open to all.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful and very insightful. I just sent you a message, so let's connect. Does anyone want to add anything to it, Edna or?
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I think everyone has shared it all, but all I wanted to say and emphasize is that don't give up in your search for funding. For example, I'm a typical case, right? I had my admission. I didn't get any form of funding, so I had to defer my program. But that didn't deter me. I didn't give up on it because I still was determined to go to school. But unfortunately, I couldn't have funding source from my parents or from any other source in Ghana at first. So I kept emailing my programs coordinator or advisor, as they've all said, back and forth. I deferred my program, but kept bombarding him with emails. Sometimes he wouldn't reply, sometimes he would reply. And I'll boldly email me and say, hey, I really want to come to school. The semester is almost up. Is there by any chance I can get any form of funding? I was very persistent about it. Like Isaac used the word aggressive, right? So it was a back and forth thing with him. A lot of exchanges here and there. Finally, on one lucky day, by God's grace, he emailed me he asked the secretary to email me and offered me a part graduate assistantship, which was also good because it was already waiving my full tuition. So all I had to pay was pretty much the general fees. And I was also paid stipend. So that actually at least gave me extra money to cover my living expenses and other things. So definitely don't give up. And if you also have the means, right, after getting the GA, even if it's partial, still take it because you can take on campus jobs when you are in the school. So don't say no, never say no at all. At least if you have some amount of funding, take that and also explore other sources once you are in the school. That's pretty much it for me.
Okay, if no one, none of our participants have any questions to add, I would like to ask our panelists to give.
Can I add just one point to what Edna said?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, I totally agree with Edna. And two scenarios. When I came in here, there was a scholarship that was organized by or offered by an organization called NABA, meaning National Association of Black Accountants. I wasn't a citizen. I wasn't a green card holder, And I told one of my professors, "Hey, I'm interested in social and so scholarship. Do you think I should apply because I'm not a citizen, I'm not a green card?" Or he was like, "What do you lose? It's just the paper that you actually, I mean, the time that you invested in writing the write-up, right? So
Right.
right. And on 2 occasions that I did, I was given money.
Okay.
They didn't look at like, things like that. The second part is where Edna is saying where you have to just keep bombarding them. Here, they look at commitment. America, like most institutions, there are a lot of institutions, they don't even have the people to go to the school, right? So if they see that you are kind of willing to advance your career and through education, and you keep pushing them, one day someone somewhere will go like, let me help this person. Let me just maybe give this person whatever she's looking for, he's looking for. Again, she said you should take whatever you are offered in terms of like funding. Yes, it's true. Sometimes they will give you something small that you feel like you can't work with. But when you get here and they get to see your conditions and the fact that you have a human being you are dealing with, go to the office and talk to the person, and they know your conditions, sometimes they might even end up giving you more. Things might change. The only thing I want to probably caution people is mostly people think like you can secure a job on campus, therefore I'm going to bang my hopes on that. Remember that before you came in, there were other international students. And as an international student, you can only work on campus. You can't work off campus. So this is not to discourage you, but to let you know that by the time you come here, there are people that are already in the system pushing for these jobs already. So it is possible you might come in, and if I'm not being, scaring you, maybe for a whole year you might not find something to do. Especially like schools that have a lot of, let's say, foreigners or international students, it is 99% possible that you come in here, you won't find anything to do on campus because most of the jobs have been taken. Having said that, we all carry, so it is possible that someone might be here a whole year, haven't found something, you get in here, and from day one, you'll be able to land a job. So just take up the challenge and don't give up, as she said. That is all that I want to add.
Thank you so much. Anybody wants to add anything to this? If no one has,
I think there is someone on the call. She wanted to get in touch with Alfred. So Alfred, please check your message.
Okay.
She's called Cheryl. She's applying to a PhD program, and she has some questions for you. Thank you.
Okay, and also I'll share our group page again. So for anyone that wants to get in touch with us, they can join the group page and see the members on the panel and other people that do contribute to this discussion. So without further ado, we would
May I ask one more question?
Yes, go ahead. We still have like, about
more minutes.
11 minutes. Go ahead, or 12
Okay.
minutes. Go ahead.
All right, wonderful. So I wanted to find out the role of the GRE or the GMAT scores, right, in helping you secure funding or a scholarship. Most of the word of mouth research that I have done, right, indicates that if you have a super good GRE score, then you're gonna get a full scholarship, man. It's just get the right score, and literally you will go to school for free. So I want to know if that is the reality. Did you get that?
We did.
Okay, yeah. So that's my final question.
So like in my presentation, I mentioned that if you want to get funding, and it's true, right? Funding is very competitive. So to distinguish yourself, you have to make sure that you are coming with the best credentials. Most funding are actually considered on a merit base. It's not a need. So as much as you can do, what you want to do is that you have very good GPA and a high GRE score. But in a case where your GPA is not that strong enough, at least your GRE score should compensate. But ultimately, your high GRE score is not the ultimate, right, for getting funding, because some schools, what you view as high is relative. Some schools, the cutoff point is very high. They tell you that even if you have the minimum or whatever, you still have to do more. So it's a school by school cases, but depending on the school you go to, if you choose a school that their requirement is not so high, then it's a sure guarantee for you that you may be considered for funding. But if you choose a school, maybe like an Ivy League school, and maybe you've done well, but at the same time, there are equally other people who have done well, then other things have to speak for you.
Mm-hmm.
So while it's good, you have to have a good GRE score. It helps secure funding. It's a case-by-case basis, depending on the school, but it's definitely helpful. If you can get a very good GRE score, definitely do so. In my case, my GRE wasn't that great. My GP wasn't too good. It was a very low second class upper, but I still had funding. But it's not because I did exceptionally well. I was able to voice my I was able to pretty much explain, right, to the programs director that because of this and that and that, and I was working, I didn't have time, I wasn't able to really study and make up for the GRE, which was fine. Americans are human beings and they really like communication and they understand. So it's not always the case that having the best GRE score is what is going to land you funding, but it's always advisable. If you're in a position to get a good score, definitely do so. Thanks.
Yeah, that helps.
I'm just curious here for the panelists. I know most of us went to school with funding, almost full funding, but did any of us go with GRE? Was GRE the main deal that got us funding? It wasn't GRE. I didn't even write GRE, but I still managed to secure funding and get through school without paying.
Wow.
I could touch on that a little bit. I wouldn't say I came to school because I did a GRE, but so in our previous sessions, we've talked about looking at the department needs and also the graduate school requirement for school. And for me, I had to write the GRE because the graduate school requires that you should write a GRE. So that was the push for me to write it, because I got my conditional admission before I got my full admission, where the conditional admission stated that 1, I produce GRE results, 2, I do this, 3, I do that. So partly to answer Ife's question, yeah, for some schools, like Edna mentioned, you need a GRE to get your funding. But I don't think that's the case for me. But I needed a GRE to secure the school. And just like we know this year, a lot of arguments have been made about whether GRE shows whether a student is exceptional, is a good student or not, or a distinctive student or not. And these days, even this year, a lot of schools are waiving GRE because they've shown, so many cases have shown that GRE is not the only way to assess whether someone will be a good student or not. But I could understand why some schools will require you to write GRE because they do not know you, and that will be the way to speak on your behalf as to whether you are good or not.
Okay.
I'm not a panel, but I'm not sure if I can speak here. But
you can
go right ahead.
Yeah. So the GRE thing, as the last lady that spoke, is sometimes they don't have confidence in the school you are coming from, believe it or not. So the differentiator there is like a GRE as a licensing exam where, let's say someone like me, I've gone to, I'm done with school, but they feel like, okay, you are Black. It's possible the school even favored you with your grades, right? So then the only thing that makes them gives them confidence is your let's say the CPA that I took. So in your case, the GRE is a standard exam for everyone that wants to pursue master's program. So even if your school was that, excuse my language, that poor or that great and they still favored you, the only way they can tell is from the GRE. Having said that, they still believe that GRE is not the final decider for admissions. It's just a part of it. And I can assure you that if they have to make a decision in giving you admission, it might form like 10% or 15%. As they are saying, most schools don't even consider them. Some schools don't. Some others to use it as part of your GPA to determine whether they have to admit you or not. But in either way, it's not like a 50-50. So your GPA is 50% and your GRE is like 50%. The GPA carries more point. And again, the school you attended is more significant to them in making their admission decision and any other thing like scholarships and stuff like that than the GRE. I can assure you that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
This is Yao. So, quick question. My question is that back in 2015, when I went to Ghana, my cousin had admission at school in New Jersey, but they asked for sponsorship, and he brought. I think he went for a company sponsorship, and they basically deny him that they need individual sponsorship because they cannot tie, like, an individual to a company in case anything happens. So they deny him. So my whole thing, I mean, I've been in this country. I came here for high school, college, masters, everything here. So I didn't go through that. So my question to you guys is that for sponsorship, is it something that it has to come, you have to find someone who has a whole bunch of money in Ghana or someone who has a whole bunch of money in America to help you get that situated?
So yeah, my question back to you is, was the company offering to pay for the fees for your cousin, or what exactly were they doing? Because I know companies in Ghana who are sponsoring their employees to go to school. And I, for one, part of the funding I got in Ghana, it was through a scholarship foundation. And at the time, I was also working with that same company. So they were able to sponsor me on, and it was okay. But the question really goes back to, were they offering to sponsor or pay the full fees for your cousin, or what was it exactly? Were they guaranteeing to pay? What was it? So, because sometimes it has to be clear. And also, the factors might not necessarily beyond just the funding, right? Sometimes you can have full funding and still get denied for other reasons beyond just the funding.
At the embassy.
But when you're at the embassy, the people are psychologists. They touch on so many different issues. And if they ask you something that, like, they see that, oh, your answer is not really straightforward, they could deny you, right? So I don't know. We don't know. Was it just, did they categorically explain that because the funding was coming from the company, so we are not giving you the, or what exactly was it?
So I'm not quite sure. He didn't get to the point that he can go to the embassy for a visa or anything. He got to the point that they say they need somebody and sponsor him in case anything happens, because he has no one here that he can stay with and all the stuff. So I'm not quite sure if the company was willing to pay everything for him. I'm not quite sure. It just happened when I went to Ghana for like 2 weeks, and then that was the story that was told to me. So, and from there, I haven't followed up.
I guess probably I'll add a little bit on that. So with the state that they were in, as I mentioned on the I-20, the school needs to show that you can pay for the remaining part of your tuition if the school itself is giving you a scholarship. But it's not just you providing the school with, oh, I have a company that would pay. You also have to provide them with the evidence of that. And they'll also do their own background. They'll do some checks here and there before they would input that. So probably there'll be more, maybe after this discussion, probably we could speak more about that. But it's not just because you tell the school, I can pay for it. I have a company that can pay for it, and then that will be done. They would need evidence whether it's a valid company, and also their bank statement or other things that will show from the side of the company that they were committed to paying for the remaining for you before they would indicate that on your I-20 and release the I-20 to you. So if the school cannot get that done, then you will not even move to the next phase, which is going to the embassy.
Okay. Thank you, guys. We're just at about 12:29 now. We're going to close at 12:30. And so I would like to thank everyone for joining us. Also, for the participants that contributed, we really appreciate your insights and your inputs. I'd like to thank all the panelists and also everyone that was able to join us. And thank you, and we will see you on our next webinar. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.